had a son named Jeff. And my brother was in Vietnam in the Marine Corps. He was a machine gunner at Quezon, which was surrounded by the bad guys, the enemy. And Lyndon Johnson said, and that was again before, and then Nixon came in and he started carpet bombing Cambodia, and it was a big secret because he didn't want anybody to know we were doing that. I wrote a letter on State Department official stationery with the gold U.S. seal in the top corner to my brother in Vietnam. And I said, take this letter to your commanding officer and have him get you an Air America flight down to Saigon. I'm going to be there with the Secretary of State and the President. See, they're not allowed in-country leave because it's so dangerous in Saigon. They assassinated GIs and the Marines. So they had to go out of the country to have liberty and leave. So anyway, Albert got an Air America ride down to Saigon. And we arrived at the embassy, and there's Albert sitting in the front office in his muddy boots, his rifle, his helmet, and he's all full of sweat. And he's sitting there. And we went rushing by, and the secretary looked at him, and he went in with us right into the ambassador's office. And he said, Lou, who is that? I said, sir, that's my brother. He's on duty here, and I asked him to come down to see him. I may never see him again, you know. He said, well, bring him out to the house tonight. I'd like to meet him, you know. I said, yes, Mr. Secretary, you know. So after dinner and all this business, and it was time to bring the evening traffic out to the secretary, and he was staying at the ambassador's residence. Ellsworth Bunker was the ambassador. They had two ambassadors. I can't even think of the other one. It was because the post was so big, they had to have two ambassadors. He couldn't handle it alone. Anyway, Albert, we got an embassy car, and I drove on out with the evening traffic, and I went up to the ambassador's in his bedroom, and I knocked on the door, and the secretary answered the door in his pajamas. He says, oh, Lou, I have your evening traffic. And he took the briefcase, and he says, oh, who's? I said, it's my brother. He says, oh, yeah. He says, how you doing? And my brother said, good evening, sir. And the secretary says, did you tell him about Jeff? Well, the secretary's son was serving in Vietnam, and he was very proud of the fact that he was the number 4 man in power in the United States, and his son was serving on the front lines in Vietnam. He's the navigator aboard the USS Repose, which is a hospital ship out in the Gulf of Tonkin. And Albert says, did you tell him about Jeff? I said, yes, sir, I did. And Albert says, yeah, he told me. He says, he's out there with all those nurses. And I said, oh, Albert, of all the things to say, the secretary is so proud of his son being in Vietnam, fighting on the front lines, and you have to say he's out there with all those nurses. I thought I would get fired. I was so flabbergasted. Anyway, the secretary never said anything. He closed the door and said, good night, gentlemen, and he closed the door. And I said, Albert, you should not have said that.
This has been a DS Public Affairs Oral History with former Special Agent Lou Diener.